Welcome back. Each spring, the NCBA Legislative Conference gives beef producers from states across the country a chance to travel to D.C. and share a local perspective with our nation's policymakers. Russell Nemetz talked with one Missouri cattleman who knows firsthand the value of these one-on-one interactions.
Well, each year during the National Cattlemen's Beef Association Spring Legislative Conference, it's a great time for cattlemen and cattlewomen to meet some new friends and, of course, catch up with some old friends along the way. And that's exactly what we're doing on today's segment. We have an old friend of ours, Mike Deering, who's now the Executive Vice President for the Missouri Cattlemen's Association. And, of course, Mike, you actually spent a little bit of time right here in Washington, D.C., serving as part of the NCBA's Communications Department. Talk about that experience and what it was like to spend a little bit of time here in the heart of our nation's capital working on important issues for America's beef cattle industry.
So my total time in Washington, D.C. was about 8 years, and the last part of that was for the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that the National Cattlemen's staff is working on behalf of cattle producers in every corner, every state in the country, and making sure that we push meaningful legislation forward, stop bad ideas, and make sure that the regulatory burden is reasonable and it's not bureaucratic and go to the extent of putting people out of business. But I heard a quote at the beginning of this conference. They said, "The future is not inevitable, you must pursue it." And that's what we're doing, and that's why we're here, and that's why it's so important that cattle producers come to Washington, D.C., that they come to their state capital and they make sure that their voice is heard. Lobbyists can only do so much. It really takes that grassroots activation. It really takes us as an industry coming together and making our voices heard. And these cowboy hats and the boots echoing in the hallways, it really does a lot. In fact, I always call it cowboy voodoo because it really gets in the psyche of these members of Congress when these folks come to D.C.
Well, we were able to tag along with you on a couple of your congressional visits today, and they really do take ownership, meaning your members that are with you on trips like this, on having that opportunity to talk about their industry and what matters to them.
Yeah, myself, like most execs, I sit in the background. I do not engage. I talk to these folks on a daily basis, and this is the opportunity for these cattle producers, these folks that walk in the ballot box and make the decision of who to vote for, to tell these elected leaders where they stand and what's important to them and their families, and to keep that family going. I mean, when you look at our delegation, we have a lot of young people, and when you look at this industry and the average age of a farmer is almost 60 years old, less than 5% are under 35 years old. If we want to sustain this industry, we want to talk about sustainability, we've got to empower the next generation, and we have them here meeting face to face with their members of Congress.
Yeah, we even noticed a few junior members a part of the delegation this year. How encouraging is that to see some young members of Missouri's beef cattle industry walking the halls and talking the talk here in Washington, D.C.?
It's a big deal. I mean, these folks are really the future. This is why we do what we do. So much of what we do with National Cattlemen's or at the state level is long-term. Sometimes you don't see short-term benefits. But every single thing that we do, every regulation, every piece of legislation about sustaining the future of this industry, and that's for these young people to pursue their dreams and to come back to that family farm if they want to.
As we mentioned, we're doing this program part of the 2018 NCBA Spring Legislative Conference, but you guys do something similar back home in Missouri during the legislature in your own state capital, where you bring cattlemen and cattlewomen together to meet with state legislators and their staff.
Yeah, we do it different than any other state that I'm aware of, and certainly different than any other agricultural organization in our state. So we don't have one event where we have our members come to the Capitol. We don't have a legislative conference. Every single Wednesday, and we implemented this about 5 years ago, we have Cowboys at the Capitol. So every week, every single week of legislative session, we have our members at the Capitol. And we divide that. We have 7 regions in our state. We have the regional vice president in charge of that. So on any given week, you'll see the cowboy hats at the Capitol on Wednesday, anywhere from 10 to 50 cattlemen at the Capitol every single week. And what that's been able to do for us legislatively, where that's taken our association, has truly been phenomenal.
Mike, we appreciate you joining us on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, and keep up the good work and keep that passion alive for America's beef cattle industry.
Appreciate you, Russell. Thank you.
All right, again, we've been visiting with Mike Deering, the Executive Vice President for the Missouri Cattlemen's Association.